yeah, maybe that's why his family put the did. You know, there was an image to protect. You know, where now maybe
Right.
not so much.
Right. And in changing people, you can only change the people that are red.
I know this.
And there's different ways to do that. I mean, as a musician or as a poet, you change a lot of people at once to the extent that they can take something in. I mean, you have the potential.
So you assume.
So you assume. As an analyst, it's only one at a time. But you get a little better look. So it's just a matter of, focus distances.
Well, I don't know what your office is like, but I don't think you have people throwing whiskey bottles at you when you're doing your work. All respect. Right. There's a different kind of whiskey bottle.
Well,
I follow your lead.
Well, the whiskey bottle thing, I mean, I guess that comes with the territory, but it must, I don't know, do you get a sense of rejection? Or is it just sort of that's how that person is?
Well, in the moment, you're like, please don't hit me with the whiskey bottle.
That's how.
But in self-examination, you can take it different ways. In victimhood, you can say, yeah, they're throwing a whiskey bottle at me for a reason. They don't like me. How come one of you doesn't like me? Spiritually speaking, you can step back and really respect the power of symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
Because what makes a person so angry in that particular moment, they must hit you.
Yeah.
What is it that you're doing?
You got to something.
I mean, I'm playing the guitar.
So you think.
So I think. I'm dreaming that I'm singing Caterwauling. And here it comes.
Yeah.
And there's a face of frenzy. It's sort of a,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the face that you see.
Yeah.
Well, so, God bless that I did something right, because in art, death is not rejection, it's apathy.
Absolutely. Analysis is the same thing.
So I've been a very effective artist on the fringes, because loved, hated, but the middle, never.
Yeah.
Middle. So I appreciate that I must be tapping into some root in there.
Right.
Why? I have no idea. I mean, I think I know, but he's got a better idea.
It may be only the edges that have the capacity to listen.
That's true too. Nothing happened.
Well, what do you think about confronting the monster? I mean, it comes up often in the form of another person.
That's a tough one. I struggle. Here's what I've struggled with most of my life. Not the obvious monsters. Those are easy.
Yeah.
Those are real easy. The guy with the whiskey bottle. Okay, that's easy. It's the one that seems to be giving you what you want and doesn't give you what you need. And I've been in different paradigms of that. The music business. Classic. We want to sign you to a contract. Oh, that must be good. Your music's no good. You're signed to this contract. You must do it the way we want you to do it.
Do something different.
Yeah. But why'd you sign into the contract? Well, we didn't think you were going to do that.
Yeah, we didn't sign you for you. We signed you for who we wanted you to be.
Personal relationship. When I met you, you told me you were going to make me happy. You told me that my dreams would come true. Yeah. But I didn't know you were going to be so mean. Those are the monsters that I have most trouble with. In fact, I lived with a monster here in here.
And yet,
Just like that.
you braved coming back.
Yes, I did. I faced. Yeah.
Big teeth.
Big teeth.
And then it seems like the hardest thing is then to think, all right, so it's one thing just to get this monster out of your life. That's always a little victory. Then the question is,
Can you get the monster out of your head?
yes. And what was it about me that looks like that? Jung's most difficult essay is about the psychological meaning of relationship. Because this other person is another person, but they're also something about yourself.
Yeah. Well, one of my most famous lines I've ever written, which popped out of my head one day, is "The killer in me is the killer in you," which is a direct recognition of, I can judge you, but I'm just as likely to pick up an eye too. In relationship, the difficulty is at what point is projection a good thing and a bad thing?
Right.
If I'm not attracted to you, well, I'm not going to be with you. Like, I get these speeches from girls sometimes, like, "Oh, you just don't like me for who I am." And I'm like, well, if I was 457 pounds, would you be with me? The answer is no.
Right.
So on some level, I'm embodying a projection. Maybe I remind them of dad or mom or whatever. And same with
Right. And the question is, how do those projections then lead us to a new life, to a deeper soul experience?
in my experience in life, the inner voice, soul, however you want to understand a being, wants confirmation that they're recognized. And so in my estimation, you have to fight through the projections. You have to simultaneously honor this vision and at the same time get past it and say, okay, I get it, I get the rings, I get the curls, but back in there is a very scared child. In my parlance, I say that, I'll even say to a love relationship, I'll say, can you get out of the way and let me speak to the child? I've literally said, I want to speak to the 4-year-old because that's who's running the show right now. And I'll have a conversation with the 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And it will change the direction of the relationship because the 4-year-old, which maybe on some level is the pure embodiment of the soul's desire or something, needs to hear, this is worthy. And what I see a lot in our culture is projections rule. And you have these 3 to 7 year relationships where,
Right.
and I'm sure you encounter it in your private practice, they just run out of gas.
That's right.
And so,
Absolutely. And the question is, how does that look like at a kind of emotional level, the one that came before that, and the one that came before that,
yeah, exactly.
right? Because that's the evidence that it's actually living in you.
Yes.
And it's needing to be communicated with. The images, not the person. That's what gets in the way of the person.
I think what's difficult right now, just digressing for a second, what's difficult right now in this culture is, this culture, particularly American culture, is asking the projections to be fed in a way that they've never been fed before.
Yeah.
If you look at the history of successful art, it's not about feeding projections. It's about feeding that soul nourishment.
Right.
The great artists are able to convince the audience that they're feeding the projections while meanwhile they're actually satisfying. But now we've tipped into another form of balance. In interpersonal relationships, I call them laptop relationships. Everybody's here. So if this human being's not giving me what I want, I'm going to find it right here. I'm going to Google, hot goth chick.
Really?
You have a gothic soul. So now we're entering into a different age of sort of interpersonal communication. Finding that level of commitment peer to peer is in some ways becoming more difficult.
It is, and this is the dark side of roles opening up. In the old days, you knew what your role was. You played it, the other person played it, you're good. The capacity for someone to actually be themselves out of that is very small. Jung thought that we are now in a very, again, it's an opportunity, but it's very, very dangerous. Modern people don't want to take someone else's word for some experience. People want it themselves.
Right.
So that's always what the Catholic Church, for instance, thought was the worst thing possible. We will tell you what the Spirit looks like, because we are the experts. And there's a certain wisdom to that. It has to be digested somehow. Now it's open. It's open to everyone. So that experience is possible.
And you can find confirmation.
That's right.
You know, if you're like, you know, I believe God only exists on Tuesdays, well, you can find a chat group. You'll find 50
Only on
people around
Tuesdays.
the world who are like, that's what I think too. So everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, where before you would have to deal with your communal construct, your familial construct, now you can just find it.
Right.
And so, if 52 people around the world only believe God exists on Tuesdays, is it true? Well, if you're having an experience of it being true, then I guess it's true. But is it true? That true? Bigger shadow. Bigger shadow in government, bigger shadow in the church, because they're not being addressed. Before you had, if you use the example of the church, you had kind of a lid on things.
Yeah.
And they kind of percolate and they were being managed.
Yeah. You know the name of the devil.
Yes. Now he's president. Or was president. Now the lid's off. You
The
know?
lid is off. That's right. That's
And as you know, once you open that Pandora's box, don't be surprised what comes out.
yeah.
For example, one of my big harps is the lack of decorum in internet culture. Anonymous, 42, gets on and decides.
Flame war.
Oh. Interesting enough, I think you see, at least it seems now, there's a fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
We're entering a different discourse now. Now there's rules.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point people are like, okay, heard it, done that. But, you know, one of my favorite pastimes is somebody gets in big trouble or they die. Pick a celebrity, you know. Read that CNN underneath. It's amazing. Somebody dies. Michael Jackson wasn't dead 7 minutes. Go down CNN, jokes. I mean, is that really who that person is?
Jokes and marketing.
Yeah. I mean, the guy wasn't dead 24 hours before people were drilling into that.
Right.
And you know, from your world, that's projection. That's just projecting out.
Right. Well, the weird thing is the world of stars. You know, back in the day, 5,000 years ago, the stars were where we projected our reality.
Mhm.
That was where the zodiac comes from.
Now
They're in Hollywood.
they're on TMZ.
That's right. And in both cases, the question was, what if I'm attracted to this star, if I'm interested in this, what does that mean about me? That's the spiritual process. We're always going to have things that draw us. The question is, can we make it our own?
Well, maybe you can help me with this. If you look at the stars of the 30s, 40s, 50s, they were an interesting combination, generally speaking. They had to be able to act, but they were also very beautiful. Now, to me, to my eye, the stars of today, they're not as beautiful. They're more like next door types.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about, can the next door type be kind of glamored up? They're not classic beauties in the traditional
Reality
sense.
TV is all about that.
Right. So I find this very interesting in that as the meanness grows, the stars are coming down to earth. It's becoming more about penetrating the artifice of it and stuff. Where before it was sort of celebrated as something to aspire to, now it's something to be kind of torn.
Yeah.
And again, I see this all as emblematic of the fact that culture in general is just not addressing its shadow. That's how I view it as an artist. Because there's such a level of projection, why is all that energy there? To me as an artist, where the energy is where the shadow is.
Well, the energy is certainly the energy. The question is, again, I think it's an opportunity. If the stars are starting to come down to earth, then that makes more responsibility for every individual, because things are not as codified. Right? When things are more codified, then the shadow is more institutional.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like every person's responsibility.
Well said.
And I think that's the opportunity and the danger.
Well, no risk, no reward.
That's right.
Care to risk some more?
Let's risk.
All right.
here's the thing that I think of when I see this, and that is that, our conscious selves, the part that we think of when we think of me, is the part on the boat. It's above the water. But the majority of the force, like the fish, is a lot bigger and more forceful than the little guy. The majority of the force is under the surface.
Right.
And the key thing to both any kind of self-realization as well as responsible living is to figure out, am I headed in the direction of that force? We all have a way that we're meant to be. But again, back to society, but to lots of things, we're also then taught to be something else. The question is, can we truly encounter that fish? Which usually comes up as something terrible, something, an enemy. It can also be a lover that gets spurned or something. It can be a projection on a politician. Are we headed in the direction that we're meant to be?
Well, I for one believe we're sort of in a energetic form of the end times. I don't believe we're actually headed towards the apocalypse, but you can make that case. But I believe we're in the form of the end times, which is the energetic end times. So I think I wrote about this recently on my blog. I was in an elevator, or I was in a car with somebody tonight, an elevator, going up hopefully, and up, not down.
Elevator or car?
Yeah. Linear. And I said, well, most other people thought we were living in the end times, but they were wrong. We actually are living in the end times. The good news is it means it's the end. And so that's what I tell myself, whether it's real or not. I tell myself that it's good it's getting darker, because it is the storm. It is the storm that needs to take place. Because I don't know how anybody looks at the way we live in general, and is okay with it. I just don't know how. I don't know how anybody looks at the news, looks at the way people treat each other, looks at the conflicts around the world, looks at the motivations for the conflicts, and they're like, yeah, that's okay. I just don't get that. We reached a point of sentient consciousness where I don't know how anybody with half a brain looks and goes, that's okay. Maybe 50 years ago, 30 years ago, well, people just didn't have information. Well, they have plenty of information now. Certainly the Western world has plenty of information. And that's why I think we're seeing the propaganda machines turn out even louder. Because they're trying to suppress that inner instinct, that inner voice that says, this is wrong. And the way they do it is they say, here comes the fish. We're going to keep the fish from you.
No, we're going to.
And they can't keep the fish from us. That's the joke.
That is the joke.
That's the stupid joke. They can't keep the fish from us. In fact, if you want to look at the United States government has never kept the fish from us. But we want to keep believing it. Why do we want to believe it? Because we want to believe in things that tell us what we want to hear, not what we need to know. Need to know.
That's right. And the things that we need to know come from grappling with our shadows, grappling with our dreams or bad dreams. That's absolutely true. And the thing about the end times is, mythologically speaking, the people that experience something as the end time get taken down to fundamentals. They get taken down to what's essential. And it means the time is now. If it's the end time, then the time to be who you're meant to be is right now.
Well, it's always right now.
It's always right now.
That's right. If you look at positive signs of life, you see people now, because they don't have as much money, they're bartering. They're offering each other help. Those are signs of life, of the human spirit coming forward and saying, okay, we're just going to work around. So I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah. Well, this is the sort of the pro and the con of almost everything. Jungians like to see both poles of the archetype, like this globalization or internet phenomenon. It democratizes knowledge, and yet it flattens out certain kinds of culture or norms or things that we're used to.
Right. I could speak in my particular world that it has flattened out the culture. It's a one-song race now. Used to be maybe an album race or a body of work. Now it's one song.
Or
Your one song versus my one song.
I don't think I'm going to win.
No, you probably wouldn't.
Diversity is very important.
But if you take a person whose entire being is about that one song, because what they want, what they're looking for behind that one song, instant fame, instant whatever it is. If they have no language to them, if they have no deeper sense of their place, and I don't mean place and like go back to your place, and just even history. I came to the music business with a great sense of history, through my father, through listening. So I was in awe, you know. And even where I pissed all over rock and roll, it's because I was in awe of it. It wasn't because I thought it was so great. It was like taking on the monster. I was willing to take on the monster.
Yeah.
In my case, it was T-Rex and Jimi Hendrix and whatever. It's like, I'll take you on.
Right.
But it's a good, playful take you on. It's a good dive into the ocean.
It's a knowing. You did it through the knowing.
Yeah. Now my business has been hijacked by people who don't care. They'll skip the boat, they'll skip the fish, they'll skip the whole picture. They'll just build a bridge right over it and wave by.
Go right to the sun.
Yeah.
Well, let's take that one song thing essentially internally, because that's certainly the negative part of it, is it's flat. But if there, I'm not going to say the positive part, but the other side is individual. You know, Thoreau once said, most men live lives of quiet desperation and go to their graves with their songs unsung, which is just the saddest thing.
I've lived a life of public desperation.
And yet you've had the opportunity to sing your songs. The question is, can we now, in a one-song world, produce that one song ourselves?
It has forced me to be in the moment, yes.
But I mean, for each person, let's say for the people that hear you, can that inspire them to sing the song that they need to sing out of their place?
Go on MySpace, and there's the 17-year-old girl living in Austin, Texas, who decided that by showing her boobs, that's the way to sing her song. As long as the culture in general supports it, well, that works.
If the culture in general supports it, then it's probably not her song.
True. But tell that to her.
Well, absolutely. No, that's, yeah.